It's showtime, Chris Kelly.
Oh,
Hello, how
why?
are you? No, we're live.
Cool. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good stuff.
Good to
It's been a
see you,
long
my friend.
time since we've been live together, hasn't it?
It has been a long time, and
Yeah.
actually, you were my very first live. I think,
Oh,
if I'm not
that's
mistaken, I
nice.
believe you were the very first person I went live with. Because I was like,
Right.
yeah, I was really nervous about it at the time. And I was like, oh, and then we had a lot of fun doing it. So I was like, okay, this isn't too bad.
Yeah.
We have
Aye.
Malamir in the chat. Hi, Malamir. How are you?
Hey,
And
Malamia, how you doing?
hopefully the notification will go out and we'll get a few more people in here. But I
Cool.
thank you so much for coming on, Chris. It's really it's a pleasure. I'm
No,
looking forward to this.
me too. Thank you so much for having me. Any excuse to geek out about tarot cards,
Yes, exactly.
isn't it?
So in case of anybody's watching who has not seen Chris Kelly or Chris Kelly McFadden on his channel, Elemental Cartomancy, he does a lot of great content over there, including most recently the Marielle um, thing, right?
Yeah, study group for the Marielle. Yeah, we've really been enjoying. In fact, Malamir's one of my fellow Marielle studiers. But yeah, I'm loving doing it. And thank you for your kind words.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Listen, I'm really impressed by the amount of work that you put into that. And
Thanks.
you've been really like staying with this and really being dedicated to it. And I mean, I know you do it monthly, but like the amount of work that must go into that is just really impressive. And I know
Thank you so
that's,
much.
oh, you're welcome, man. I know it's something that will come in handy down the road, especially people who want to dive into the Marielle. You can watch it anytime. You can go back and watch from the beginning. You can stay current. He also has Zoom chats, right? You have Zoom. You have
Yeah, yeah. So it's the last Thursday of every month. We do on my usual live time. We do the live, and then the Sunday before that we have the Zoom. So it's not necessarily the last Sunday. I don't say the last Sunday because it might not be, it just depends on when the last Thursday falls. But yeah, that's how we do it. So there's a Zoom and a YouTube live, and we basically go over the same cards. And we're more than halfway through now, so we are. We've just finished doing the Archangels on the sixes. Um, so yeah, we've got the sevens through to the kings left to do. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll feel like a sense of accomplishment when you finish it because
Definitely. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really awesome. We got a few more people in the chat. We have Gerald from Tarot Stash. Hello,
Hey
Gerald
Gerald, how
and
you doing?
Tony.
Hey Tony.
And if I'm missing anybody, it's because of StreamYard and not any other reason. Sometimes it takes some time to update. But so Chris and I are here, and this is something that I've been kind of thinking about this for a while. I wanted to start doing like these little chats on, I guess, focused topics having to do with tarot.
Yeah.
And I thought there was no better person to have than Chris Kelly to come on for this one.
I thank you.
Talking about the majors because Chris is a person who I feel like has a really um, close relationship with the tarot. It's very obvious in the way he reads, and he's very passionate about it. And he's also very knowledgeable, so I'm happy to have him here to talk about it. And so the theme, of course, is tarot sequences, or how did I call it? Macro narratives.
Yeah, I think that was the phrase you used. Yeah, macro narratives and sequences in the tarot. Um, so yeah, thank you very much. That's really kind of you to say, and I'm excited to whenever we chat about tarot, Justin, whether it's about this kind of a stuff or whether it's just about a particular reading. If one of us sends the other one a picture of a reading that we've done, I feel as though we always have a really good conversation about it. So I'm excited for that this
Yes,
evening.
absolutely. And we have, I believe I just saw Simon come in. Hello, Simon from the
Hey
Hermit's
Simon, how you
Cave.
doing?
So, how much of an importance do you put on sequences in your reading? What are sequences to you? You know,
Um, I suppose there's lots of different kind of a ways of looking at it, isn't there? I suppose from a certain point of view, it's one of the many things when I'm reading. It's one of the many things that I might draw on when I'm reading. So there's different ways of just reading the cards full stop. You might read it pictorially, intuitively. You might stick to the meanings, and within that, it depends what school of thought you're coming at it from. Um, but you might bring astrology into it. Those are just a couple of different ways of reading the tarot. And I think that the sequences is one of those kind of a things, one of those bullets we can have in our belt to pull on to give us more knowledge. So, for example, if I'm seeing the death card, and I'm just saying that because I'm looking at it right now, um, as well as like thinking, I might think, I've got some chap on a horse, or I might think, right, what does the death mean to me? But equally, another thing that I can pull on is, right, well, I know that it comes after the hanged man. So I might say to the person, have you recently kind of been through a bit of a pause, and now you feel as though shit's really hitting the fan? So to me, they're important, but they're just as important as some of the other stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I look at it similarly. I don't know that I know there are some people who really rely on the sequence.
Mm,
They really, I mean, look, like perfect example is Rachel Pollack. I know that she has a very fluid relationship with this sequence,
yeah,
and I think for me, similar to you, it's like a tool in the toolbox. It's something, but I also think it was very helpful, kind of to learn a little because when you first start with tarot, most people start with the major arcana, and then you move to the minors. Not everybody, but that's usually how it's done.
did you do
And
that?
I
Is that how
did,
you started?
yes, I
Right.
did do
Okay.
that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just for me, I think it was the easiest because for one, like the majors are, they're more illustrious. They're easier to kind of follow. They're
Yeah.
blingier, and there's less of them too. There's only 22, whereas there's 56 minors, and it's all numbers. Especially if you're dealing with a pip deck. But of course,
Right.
with the Rider Waite Smith, like we learned with, it's it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I thought, I found personally sort of seeing that story, and of course the popular one is the Fool's Journey. That's the
Yeah.
one that we that is the most well known. And when you see that story, it's kind of helps make sense of what's going on in the Trumps.
Yeah. Definitely. I definitely agree. It's funny though. Do you know? I didn't start that way. I didn't. I don't think I knew. Right. We've got to bear in mind that I started being like I got my first tarot deck when I was maybe like 8 or 9 or something, right? But like my first experience with the tarot, I got my new deck home. I gave them, it must have been the shittiest shuffle in the world because I pulled two cards and I remember it was Hanged Man and Death, which obviously they come one after the other. I just remember being like, Mom! And she was like, "Ah, you're an idiot. You need to do it properly. Read the book." So, so I don't think I knew there was a major and a minor arcana until a fair bit into actually working with the deck. So I didn't start with the majors first and then move on to the minors. I think I just all in one it, which was a
Yeah.
mistake, but that was the way it happened.
No, I think that's probably more common than, we realize because, there's so many people that probably don't realize there's the difference between majors and minors, especially in a fully illustrated deck. And, if
Yeah,
you're just picking up and going, but then once you pick up a book and you really start to learn
yeah,
it, but of course at 8 or 9, I mean, I can't imagine like doing that at that young of an age. you
right,
know
yeah,
not that young. I don't know. It's I got my first deck when I was, I think, like 11 or 12, and of course it was the rider deck, but I didn't really start taking it seriously until college, I think.
right, okay,
And
fair
I
enough.
got a pip deck, actually. It was the Celtic deck, by Helena Patterson, I believe her name is.
All right, okay,
And it was all coins and I was like, how do you get meaning from that? It was just so like
yeah,
confusing. And of course, I went back to the Rider Waite Smith to learn with. But
yeah, fair enough.
I think I saw Deanne come in. Hello, Deanne. Welcome. Thanks
Oh
for
yeah, there
stopping
she's
by.
there. Hey Deanne, I can see Malamir saying So that's why you shuffle so thoroughly to this day to me, probably. Probably.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, well, you converted me on the riffle shuffling because
Oh
I know
yeah.
when we met I was not a riffle shuffler, but I think the more decks I got and the more the more new decks I would buy, I just got frustrated with how long it took to shuffle. So I was like, the hell with it. I'm just going to riffle shuffle when I get a new deck, and I'll do it very gently.
And then before you know it, every time you do a reading, you've got to riffle shuffle.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty funny. And so we were talking about um, the different narratives, and so what is if we're looking at the full 22 trumps,
Mm.
what would you say is like the one that you abide by most, or if there
Yeah,
is something that you can
it's funny.
identify?
Do you know? Do you mean like the pattern, like the kind of talking about the different ways of setting them out?
Yeah, because you have, you have three groups of seven, which is popular. It was made popular by
Yeah,
Rachel, and of course Young and Taro, and then you have, I mean,
yeah,
there's a limitless amount of ways you can
yeah.
set up
There,
the cards.
there really is.
But I think the two main ones is separate the first. I guess the simplest would be half and half. So you would separate the fool and the
Mm.
world, and then you would
Yeah,
do the magician through the wheel, and then strength.
yeah,
Or justice through judgment.
yeah. So I think, funnily enough, it's not the first one that I've got in front of me here. Let me see. I'll show you what I've got in front of me. I've got the three groups of seven. Um, but
Let's see here.
if you're asking me what I would say is my one that I gravitate most towards, I'd probably say the 1 to 10 and 11 to 20, just because I'm so numerological with the minors, um, that I think it just that's how it tends to work for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I
didn't know that. I actually didn't know that about you. That's interesting.
Yeah, I do like a wee bit of numerology. And yeah, I mean, there's one of the kind of a ways that you can get your numerology system is by going back to the relevant major. So the aces relate to the magician, the twos relate to the high priestess, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So the two groups of 10 are kind of probably what feels more right to me, if you want to put it that way. Although I would never say that one's right and one's wrong. But yeah, like probably the two groups of 10.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because like you said, I mean, it goes 1 to 10 is corresponds with the pips, and so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. I tend to favor the three groups of seven, and
right.
I tried all different like in preparation for this and just kind of get my head in this chat. I tried to you know, put together different groupings. But I find that it's funny because you say you favor the two groups,
Mm.
but you have the three groups of seven. I
So
favor the
you get
three
the
groups of
10.
seven, and I have the two groups of 10 out in front of me, which is which is insane. But you
We're
know,
just being contrary here.
yeah, exactly. That's funny. Yeah, I tried to do it, and I like the main issue, and like this plays in with the sequence in general is the virtues, is strength, temperance, and justice.
Right.
Because when you separate them in two, you would have justice and temperance in one line, and then you would only have strength in the other if you're going by the Rider Waite Smith. And then if you're going by the Marseille system, you would have, would it be justice in the first 10, and then you have the two in the second.
Right, yeah, I've got you. Whereas if we're going by the Smith weight and the three, then the three virtues are actually start, center, and end of the middle line, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. Yeah, it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't think I'd actually noticed that before, but the three virtues is something that you're a lot stronger on than me. I don't really tend to. So tell me about the three virtues.
Well, so they're part of the four cardinal virtues, which
Hmm.
is I think it's from Plato. Actually, I gotta fix my camera here. And so it's actually miss and prudence is the fourth one. But I believe the three by themselves are known as the three moral virtues.
Right.
And there were various orders of tarot, which are kind of don't really mean much to us because we accept what they call Order C, which is the Marseille, and then the Rider-Waite-Smith order. But in
Mm.
the other various orders, did they? So it was A, B, and C are the three general orders. Like the Bolognese tarot actually had the virtues grouped three in a row between the Chariot
Right.
and the Chariot and what was it? Let's see. I'm getting mixed up here.
The Hermit movie.
The Chariot and the Hermit, or something like that. Yeah, but they were all together. And then the other order had um, a virtue in each group of seven cards. And this
Yeah.
one has them all in the central line, which is interesting.
I just saw someone asking what deck I was using, so I thought I would just quickly.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's alright.
But so in that sense, like they kind of throw me off too a little bit because I feel like the second line. So the first line. Let's talk about the first line first. Obviously, we're looking at the three groups of seven cards.
Hmm.
Like, what's something that you notice about the first
Um,
seven?
well, I kind of look at it as, I suppose, a bit like body, mind, and spirit. I think. I don't really know. Like they're all. It's all a very kind of a earthly conquest, isn't it? The
Yeah,
the first line. It's kind of an outward expression. To me, this is where the fool's learning about, the world around about him. Um, so I think that's what I would say about it. And the chariot is that worldly conquest. I suppose that very kind of a earthly victory type.
yeah. Yeah, I think for me too. I think of them as the earthly rulers. That's
Mm.
that's how I look at them. They're like all earthly kind of. They're all basic, except for the magician. Really, I mean, you can say that he's like a low-level leader of some sort. But the papess, the empress, the emperor, the pope, they're all earthly rulers, and of course, lovers and the chariot is not. But well, if you look at it this way, you can look at it as the lover as a person, like which I've seen it in some. It's interesting. It's next to the warrior. You have like the lover and the warrior.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Do
and you
you
have
think look at this as the warrior?
well, he's a warrior. I mean, I think of it
Mm.
as the chariot, but
Yeah, the
you know,
charioteer, I suppose.
yeah, in a way, it's kind of like he's a warrior. I mean, it signifies victory, and
Yeah,
you like typically they would celebrate victories like in a chariot and so forth. And so, you know,
yeah,
you could look at it that way. You could look at it as like the lover and the warrior, and then you have like the I guess like the um uh what's the word I'm looking, secular king, and then you have like the divine king, like the
right.
with the pope, and then the
Yeah,
same thing with the empress. So you have the two aspects of the feminine leadership, and then you have the two aspects of the male. And the odd one
yeah,
out is kind of the magician for me,
right.
because there's even
Okay.
a duality between lover and chariot too, if you think about it. Like, if you're looking at the
Yeah,
warrior
I
and the chariot.
definitely. I suppose I might look at the first few cards a wee bit differently. I see like the magician and the high priestess is where the fool who starts off with all like both active and passive in one, or male and female, or masculine, feminine. Think like all dualities are all kind of a just one unity in the fool, and it splits. We've got the magician, which is the very outward, active, male energy. If we're thinking about it like that, and you've got the high priestess, which is the very kind of a inward, reflective, passive energy. Uh, and that to me, that this is where the fool is discovering, what these energies mean within himself, Then he kind of meets his kind of a earthly mother and father, if you want to call it that. You know, the kind of a mother and father type cards or the parent type cards. Um, then it's the hierophant for me is the community. It's like it's not, your a religious leader is a good for me a good symbol of it. I suppose when you think about where the tarot comes from, it comes from a time, times of perhaps where theology was a big thing, and you know, like your religious leader was a good symbol of your community, of everything outside your home, and how that, what they expect from you and what all that kind of a stuff. But to me, this is basically where the fool's learning what everything outside of his home, his mother and father, what his community expects from him. Um, and then you've got the lovers, is where he's, searching for that harmony, that, that something out with himself, and it's like it's almost like the one magnet looking for its perfect opposite. And then the chariot is like trying to kind of reconcile those forces and not get carried away with it and use them to drive forward. So sorry, the reason I was going on about that was because I suppose I see these two a wee bit differently. The magician and the high priestess, from what you
Yeah.
were describing.
Yeah, I really like what you were saying. I was just seeing Simon here said lots of seated facing forward,
Yeah, that's
which
true.
yeah, it's all about power. I mean, there's for me, it's power of some sort.
Yeah, earthly power, and I think
Yes, earthly
that's
power.
why they say, if I can hold this closer and let people say it, but we probably all know this, but like if you look at the actual chariot that the charioteer is sitting in, it's actually a concrete block, and he's kind of a cemented into it.
Yeah.
And they say that if you go through your life only looking for earthly conquest, then you're going to slowly but surely like petrify. You're going to slowly but surely turn into stone, like this charioteer is kind of in danger of.
Yes.
And that's why it's important that we move on to the kind of the different levels, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, what we were saying about the magician and the papess, I feel like with this particular deck, I tend to look at the magician and the papess sort of as a pair, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
almost like anima and animus, or almost like the papess is more of the consort of the magician.
Right.
But when I look at a historic deck or a Rider Waite Smith, and I know you have something interesting to say about this too, because we were talking about it the other day. But in the more historic decks, I tend to see the papess as the consort of the Pope, which it doesn't change it that much, but it's a little bit. I
Yeah.
feel like, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Um. So I'm trying to remember what I was saying about it the other day. So I think it was to do with the fact that, and I'm conscious that the Marseille deck that I've got that's size appropriate for doing this has got Juno and not the Papist. So I'm going to see if I can quickly find, um,
Hey, I knew that deck.
or even just, you should. It was a very handsome man that made it for me. Maybe you know
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take any compliment I can
him.
get.
um, I, c- I don't really need to show you, but it would have just been good. But my point with the Marseille
I
is
have
this
the bigger
idea of
version.
active and passive becomes a bit more,
I have the small
like, a
ones.
lot
So
more out there for me, because in the well, you've got it there. In the Marseille magician, we have the street magician, which is a very kind of a outward active. It's that kind of a, some people think of him as a bit of a swindler, but the point is he's trying to impress people. He's drawing people in. He's impressing everyone. He's kind of he's got that warm nature that draws people in. The Papist, on the other hand, represents all of the knowledge in the world, but it's damn hard to get. Like, getting anything out of her can be like getting blood from a stone, or at least that's the way that a lot of us look at her. So from that point of view, she's the opposite. She's got all of the stuff, but kind of people feel a bit turned off by just that coldness that she can sometimes embody. So from that point of view, the Marseille magician and Papist are actually very opposite, and really appropriate for this kind of a, active and passive energies that this fool gets split out into.
Yeah. Sometimes I have an inclination to throw the fool in with the magician too. Like
Right.
I look at, but it's impossible to get like a similar amount of cards in each sequence. But if we threw the fool in next to the magician, you can see it's kind of two aspects of the jester or trickster kind of archetype. You got the fool in one
Yeah.
sense, and then you
Yeah.
have the focused magician, and then you have the two feminine leaders are together and the two male leaders are together. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but it would almost be like the papess, pope, empress, emperor, lover, and warrior. It's like duality. All it's really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's endless. Sometimes it blows my mind how many ways you can really interpret these things
Yeah.
and all the little nuances you can pick out, you know.
Yeah. Justin, have you got any of the kind of a Caselli, either the Mythic or the Charmin Caselli tarot?
I don't. Which mythic? Oh, the mythic
Either one?
tarot. Yes, I have the new one. I do. Do you want me to grab it?
No, 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 no. I was just going to say because see the thing is they're not numbered. So see once you've shuffled them and you've been working with them, most people probably don't even think to notice this, but I'm pretty sure that in the Mythic and the Charmin Caselli, they order the the majors differently from this. So they actually have the three virtues together, I'm sure, like you're describing.
Yeah,
In fact, I'm sure I've got the book for the old one here, so I could
that would
probably.
make more sense to me.
I'm sure they also put like the. Let me see. So the Fool, the Magician, the Empress, the Emperor, the High Priestess, the Hierophant, and then the Lovers, the Chariot. Sorry, you can see a wee bit of a book, but it's not really the easiest to see here. The Lovers, the Chariot, and then we go Justice, Temperance, Strength, Hermit, and then everything else I think is normal after that.
Yeah,
But
that's a
they,
historic order, I believe. I think that's the
is it?
one. I think that's one of the ones I was talking about because you have the three. It's one of the three orders where you
Right,
have
okay, that's
the
interesting.
virtues grouped together. I actually was thinking the same thing um, earlier because I'd pulled this deck to kind of show you. It's called the Great Parade Tarot,
Right.
um,
Why don't you
and it's
swap us
by.
round so as we can see what you're
Oh
holding
yeah,
up?
yeah, good idea. Let's see here. Okay, so this is called the Great Parade Tarot. It's by Ian Comsty. And I was thinking the same exact thing. It's not numbered.
Mhm.
And in a way, that's kind of like, the earlier decks were, for the most part, not numbered and not labeled. And in fact, the only way they know about the orders is because the rules were written down. So they have,
Right, okay.
but this is a great deck for that because they're not numbered or labeled. And there's a little card here that comes with it which has on one side it has the Marseille order,
Oh, okay.
goes through that, and then on the other side it has Taroko Bolognese, um, which is like one of the these are two out of three ways that
Mhm.
historically we know they were ordered. And the whole idea behind Tarot, well, Tarot was a trick taking game. It was like Go Fish or whatever. And the trumps are actually like a hierarchy, in the game. And so the higher numbered cards outrank the lower number cards. But, we're dealing with decks that weren't numbered or labeled. So these were things that people knew. It was almost like common sense to them.
Mhm.
Like people instinctively knew that the Pope outranked the Papess, or that the Emperor outranked the Emperor. The Emperor outranked the Empress, even
Right.
though there's other decks that have it reversed.
Right, okay.
I can't think of. It's one of the. I think it might be the Auto or one of those. But regardless, whatever the culture was at that time in that given place, it was almost common sense for them. And so there's certain things uh, that you can kind of see like similarities and that allow them to know, well, this game that this, for instance, you know, every the death card is for me is let's go back to your screen because I want to see the trumps. Let's see here. The death card is a great way to kind of see this because it's like everything after death is sort of like immortal in a way, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And that's really so in the game that's what they were thinking. So it's like, okay, so you have the magician, the papess is trumps the magician, the empress trumps the papess, and so forth. The warrior trumps the lovers, blah blah blah. And then you get to uh, the death card, and everything after death. That's when you get into kind of the heavens, the supernatural realms,
Yeah,
and
yeah, true.
except for temperance, which throws me off. So, like, I like to just take the virtues out of the mix sometimes and just kind of look at the cards because it makes perfect sense. But it's like, why? I asked a question on tarot history the other day. Um, why does temperance outrank death over the other virtues? Over strength and justice. You know, and to me personally, there's a certain kind of emphasis on temperance that isn't on the others. Like, to be temperate is almost like divine. You know what I mean?
Mm. Well, that is an angel on the card, so
Yeah, there
I
is,
suppose you
and
would
that
be.
yes, exactly, and in Marseille too. But in some earlier decks, temperance wasn't an angel.
Right, okay.
And somebody had answered on that's a really good point you brought up because somebody had answered me on tarot history, saying that the French wondered the same thing, like, in this order, why does temperance outrank death? Like, what is it's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me because it's a virtue, but does it why does that trump death and not the other virtues? Why, for instance, why doesn't justice outrank death, you know
Yeah,
but I was thinking, because philosophically, if you think about it, temperance outranks death because it's like, to be able to be temperate is something divine about that. It's a challenge for everybody. You know, justice isn't always necessary. Like, to achieve justice, especially in Christianity, like, sometimes you have to accept the injustices. You have to accept things that aren't, um, you can't always fight for justice. Sometimes you have to turn the other cheek or whatever. So it's important, but it's not as important as being like temp- temperate or whatever. That's the way I think about it anyway. But the lady
okay.
pointed out that the French added wings, um, onto the temperance card. So anyway,
Okay, that's interesting.
sorry, I know I'm going on about
No,
this. I'm just really fascinated by it, and it's like something that just it had me thinking. I was like, I could not
yeah,
figure out for the life of me.
yeah. I don't know, you've got me thinking now. I mean, I was going to say, like, I suppose, like, strength is that kind of a inner battle with yourself, you know, the different aspects of yourself, your animal self that wants to kind of a come out, and then you've got that kind of a higher self that's kind of and there, there's that ongoing duality between them. So it's very kind of a self oriented and so very kind of a concerned with you and how you present yourself on the earth, for
Yeah,
lack of a better way to put it. Justice is a kind of a outward to me, justice is I always find it really difficult to explain what I look at justice as. So to me, it's not so much about what we mean when we say the word justice in everyday conversation. That to me isn't exactly what the card necessarily means. Justice is like the axiom that the world exists in. When we think about like all 7 or 8 billion humans on the earth, justice is the kind of the natural and man-made laws that exist, that we exist within, and it kind of governs, how we coexist and what happens, when we follow the rules, what happens when we don't. So again, it's very concerned with how we're coexisting on Earth, albeit looking at it from a very kind of a um, psychological, perhaps philosophical point of view. Um, Temperance, I'm not sure if it's really concerned with that. I'm not sure if temperance just goes a wee bit, scratches beneath the surface a wee bit. I'm not sure if it does something a bit different, if it goes a bit deeper. Um, and maybe that's why it transcends death, if that's the right phrase to use. Uh, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I'd need to spend more time thinking about that. Sorry, Malamir's comments on the screen.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I put it up there so I wouldn't forget because I would have forgot when I was listening to it.
Yeah,
Rachel Pollack describes temperance as doing the impossible with grace and poise. That's right, she does.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the great thing is, I mean, like obviously the rules of the game don't really have an influence. First off, there's no right or wrong way to read the card. I mean, however you relate to the cards, these are just hooks. To me, they're hooks on like whatever you want to
yeah,
see. And not everybody's going to be interested in the historical meanings of the cards in the game. I particularly found it very useful because it explains a lot for me. You know, like the Fool, for instance, being a pass card in the game. It's a wild card. That explains why we set it aside. Um, but like every other game too, there's also kind of like a symbolic meaning behind it too. Like kind of like in chess, when you look at the chess piece, like the queen being more powerful than the king. And you start thinking, well, why is that? It's because a lot of times games reflected society.
mm,
The rules of the games reflected society, so there's symbolism in that. So I found that kind of helpful.
yeah,
But obviously it's not necessary. I mean, it's just when you're looking at a lot of historic decks, you tend to, I don't know, I just saw something I got interested in and decided that it helped me reading. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think like like I was talking about at the start, how you can like take the traditional meanings, take the visual meanings. You can take the sequence, you can take. Well, I suppose the rules of the game is just one other thing that you can take. Either whether you want to draw on that to make to give your reading something extra, or whether that's just something that for some other reason that's personal to you. But I think, yeah, like there's no right or wrong way. Do you know what I mean?
No,
There's
not at all. There's definitely not a wrong way. It's very cool, like with the Fool. We were just talking about the Fool, though, like how the Fool kind of and Rachel talks about this in her book, like the Fool sits in like the outside of society. You know, like
yeah,
he's, like when you pass an unfortunate person on the street that has given up on like life and just panhandles and rides trains to wherever they ride. Like that's what that energy captures in a sense, and sits outside of society. So that explains why it's not in the mix of the
yeah.
cards.
I
That's
think she
why I like
says
this.
that's why the sun's white, because he exists in a different world. He doesn't exist in our world of existence or something like that. He's
Yeah.
kind of just outside that, but he's just getting ready to jump into it. I'm sure I remember reading that somewhere.
Jonathan was saying something about temperance being let's see. Oh, alchemy, of course, yeah. Temperance, the great work of alchemy, the philosopher's stone was supposed to be. Yes, exactly. Definitely. And that probably had some influence on like the order as well, and like why they changed it.
Yeah. Um, the Marielle deck that I'm studying just now, there's a lot of kind of alchemy in that. You can tell that Marie White, the person that made it, was an alchemist. There's a lot of kind of imagery and symbolism in there to do with like the alchemical process of turning the base lead into gold.
Yeah. I'm excited for the new Kim Crane's deck. I didn't know pre-order yet, but I'm excited. It's an
Yeah,
alchemy deck, and I she's so smart, and like I loved her archetypes deck, and I'm like, oh, how cool she's doing an alchemy
yeah,
one because it's like how do you learn alchemy? You need to like read a lot of old books and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
It's pretty unique. I mean, I haven't seen anything. I mean, there's a couple tarot decks that do it, but um, I'm excited for that one.
yeah. That'd be cool.
Okay, so next we have well, we were talking about the middle line already, but I guess I'll ask you, what do you see the second line of 7 cards as? What are some things that you see about it? So we've established that that's like the top line is like, you know, earthly leaders, people who hold power. In a sense, it's our early life and our parents and stuff like that. What do you see the second line as?
Yeah. I'm not really sure to be honest with you. I think this is why I tend not to gravitate towards this one because um I suppose maybe like I don't know. What do you think? Tell me what you think because I'm not sure.
Well, so if you do the Marseille, if you swap out strength for justice, well, that's really
Mhm.
not that important. But if you take out the virtues, if you just take out the virtues in general, like I was saying, all the
Mhm.
cards have to do with time and fate,
Right.
meeting your fate. Because if you're looking at the hermit as father time, a lot of times you see him with an hourglass,
Yeah.
and so obviously in this Rider Waite Smith, he's not time, he's the hermit. He's about going within. But the early decks, you see a lot of hourglasses and stuff. So I tend to see that card as having to do with time and then fortune and kind of meeting your fate. The hangman and the death are both kind of cards of fate
Yeah.
and like bad fortune. You know,
Right.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of what I see. The virtues kind of throw it off a little bit, but I think if we're looking at it in terms of the fool's journey, it's about lessons in the outside world, things we have to face, difficulties, learning how to
Yeah.
be, learning about justice and injustice, learning about
I
you know
suppose it's just each kind of a layer just goes a bit deeper than the last one, isn't it? So this is very kind of a very earthly, and how can I be the most powerful person that I can be, like the most earthly, like accomplished person that I can be. This goes a bit more psychological. Um, and I guess the bottom is maybe going to be a bit more super conscious, like kind of a higher self type. But yeah, I'll stick justice there for the time being.
well, and of course you're more of a numerology guy. So like you said, you're more of it looking at them individually in terms of the numbers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah. So what do you think about the bottom row? What does that mean to you?
Um, that's the heavenly realm. So,
Uh,
okay, so this is going to be like a little bit. Again, I'm going to change the tower to lightning because I feel like the tower is more about lightning than it is about the
yeah,
tower, the structure of the tower. It's more about the lightning.
I agree.
Uh, and so you have the lightning, the stars, moon, and sun. They're all instruments of light or elements of light, uh, and the heavens. You know,
Yeah,
um, of course, this would be the hell. Rachel calls it like the super conscious or whatever. Um, this has to deal with the heavenly realm, because it's after death. So with
yeah,
death, you have temperance, and then you have the devil, which of course he's immortal, but he's an evil figure, but he's immortal. He's not susceptible to death. Lightning isn't either, at least in terms of the way we look at death. Lightning is immortal, and so is the stars, and the moon and the sun, and then the angel of judgment, and then of course the world. So they're all kind of
yeah,
like, you know, heavenly beings.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So like, it's quite cool when you look at the kind of the progression of light. Because you start off with the devil, which I suppose we could see that as pure darkness, couldn't we?
Hmm.
And then you've got like the flash of lightning, which is a small, the spark or the lightning flash, which is a kind of a smaller. I think you've talked about this before, haven't you? The kind of a hierarchy of light, did you
Yeah, the
call it?
hierarchy of lights. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the star, the light's getting bigger from the moon, and then the sun. I don't quite know how Gabriel fits into the hierarchy of light. I don't know if because he's an angel, um, you know, that his light is greater than that of the sun. I don't know if we're looking at it that way or
I think just the hierarchy of light is actually just the lightning through the sun.
right. Okay.
That's like the part of that um, those are the kind of elements of power from the heavens that we say, and judgment is kind of the angel, the final judgment, and then you have the world, which is like the culmination of all things, I guess. Maybe our unity with heaven. I don't know what they would have thought about it, philosophically, if that was like reunification with the creator, or um if you're looking in terms of Jungian, it's like the individuation, the re joining of the atom and animus, and and so forth like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Cool. So what is like? Can I ask? So we've obviously talked about um the three septenaries, but what about the seven triads? Like, what about the
Oh,
down the way? Do you think any about
that gets
them?
trickier. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, okay. How about you start with that one? Do you want to start off with that, or
I mean, I think there's different ways you could look at it.
yes?
So, for example, the magician and the devil is a nice one to kind of be at the opposite end because to me they're very much opposites. The devil's pointing, it's a torch, but he's pointing something down and pointing up. The the magician is pointing the scepter up and pointing down, so it's like the magician's conjuring and the devil's destroying. So it's almost like he's the dark magician.
Yeah.
And then you've got strength in the middle, so it's this wrestle of good against this evil, the wrestle with the beast in the middle, trying to kind of reconcile that. Um, and I think you can kind of see, you can see it in different ways, but like, I think that's what each one is trying to do. It's like, was it that, you've got the unity, the duality, and then the third, the third point, which is like when you think about the triangles on the tree of life, you know, uh, most of the Sphera, apart from Malkut, they appear on a triangle, and it's like you've got one that kind of opposes the other, and then you've got the third that's always kind of the balancing act, the balancing force. Um, it's kind of like that, I feel as though each of these triads could be like could form a triangle somewhere on the tree of life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It's really cool. I'm not like really much of a Kabbalah guy. I know you've been really into that, especially studying with Mary L. I've always
Mm.
been very intimidated by Kabbalah. Um, how about if you swapped strength with justice?
I see. I sneakily swapped them back, just so as that I wouldn't have to answer that question.
No, but if you look at justice, okay, if you look at justice, I mean, she kind of fits in very well with the devil and
She does,
you
because
know,
it's the determining right from wrong. Do you know what I mean? So, like, if you think about the magician and the dark magician, the like creating and destroying, both are
yeah,
forces that we need to have. It's like life and death. Do you know what I mean? We can't live without either one. But how do you reconcile that justice? Do you know what I mean? In the middle, keeping that balance. Even the pillars, that like the grey pillars, representing
yes.
the kind of the harmony.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, it works really well. I did okay. So the moon and the emperor and the strength is not so obvious to me. This is
the moon.
definitely something I need to spend time with and think about. Like this could be the next step for me in terms of working with the sequence. Looking at
Yeah,
the verticals. Is it the vertical or is it horizontal? I always forget. Up and down. Is that vertical or horizontal? I
uh,
always get that
up and
mixed up.
down is vertical.
Vertical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I suppose I normally think about this one with justice in there. Um, but I mean, yeah, I think it's easier for me personally to think about that with justice there because you've kind of got, like I described justice earlier on, as the kind of the axia or the axiom. The if you've ever seen the film The Matrix, do you know what I mean? The Matrix is like all the wee green numbers that we see. It's basically how everything's existing. The um the Emperor rules that, and the Moon kind of, and it's his job to kind of keep that in line and balance. And then it's the Moon's job to absolutely turn it tit side up. Do you know what I mean? Like everything goes tits up in the air. Like that's what the Moon does. It's like, you're in the twilight zone. It's like, what's happening here? Like, why are none of the usual rules applying? Because you're in Moon energy. Um, so that is maybe an idea about how that center pillar might work. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like you say, like everyone's got their own ways of looking at the card, so everyone's going to have their own ways of looking at these things.
Yeah. I was just looking here at the comments. So let's see. Jonathan was saying you start with the ultimate darkness of the devil, and the lightning and the tower is the first spark of that light. Yeah, pretty much. Yep, is what Chris was saying. Um, Deanne likes what you were saying about the similarities between the rows and how we are learning similar things in each row, but at different levels. Makes me think of learning lessons repeatedly in life. Definitely.
Yeah,
Oh wait, hold on. Let's see. Aren't those triads also used for the soul, destiny, and birth cards? I don't know. Um, are they? Are they
no,
used? I don't think
no,
so.
they're
Yeah.
not. I think so. So what you need to do for that, you would basically have two rows of nine. If it's what you're thinking, what if I'm thinking of what you're thinking, Jonathan, you would have two rows of nine and a row of four at the bottom, with the full counts as 22. Is that what you mean, like your birth card, where you so like the triads for that would be, I can quickly see if I can rearrange and zoom out a wee bit so as it fits in if you want. Because like that's another, I suppose, another thingy that we can talk about. Excuse all of the shit that I've got about here. So seven, and then eight and nine, and that this is quite a powerful one as well. But basically, what you've got is each kind of a 9, and then 10, 11, 12. Sorry, 19, 20, 21, 22. So this is what Jonathan's talking about.
Okay.
And this is where each one reduces to the one above. So the 13, 3 and 1 is 4, which is the Emperor for the full, to 22. 2 and 2 is 4, which is also the Emperor.
Oh, cool.
So I exist on this row, so I do. And it depends what way I add up my birth date, 1st of November 1988. If I do it 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 8, I get myself here at Justice. If I do 1 plus 11 plus 1988 and then reduce, I get to the High Priestess. And it doesn't matter what way you add it, you might get different cards, but you'll always end up on the same kind of a column, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, I could probably zoom this in a wee bit, just so that people
I
can
never
see it.
thought about lining them all up like this. I of course, I'm in the first. I'm the constellation of the magician.
Yeah,
But I never actually laid them all out like this. It's kind of cool.
yeah, it's quite a cool way of looking at it, and I think, I mean, I don't really
Hey,
know
Masha.
that much about it, but I think it has a lot of kind of a like a lot of meaning behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's just yet another sequence
Yeah,
that I didn't even think of.
there we go. I
And
hope
yeah,
people
and
can
they
see
all
that.
okay, and they all go okay. It's interesting. The last, like, if we're looking at them horizontally, the last line is the sun, judgment, the world, and the fool.
Yeah, yeah, that is really interesting. It's really cool. Um, and like I think the lovers and the devil is a really interesting column. Just visually to look at it.
Yes.
Um, I suppose the chariot as well. There's a lot of these kind of these duality, or even the kind of a trinity cards
Yeah.
that repeat. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's the genius of the tarot. I mean, there's so much that you can pull from these cards.
yeah,
Things that we
definitely.
haven't even thought of, that just seem to work.
Yeah. So I hope that was what you meant, Jonathan. He says, yeah, right, that's cool.
Yeah, that reminded me of when we were talking about the three. Somebody mentioned three something or other. I was thinking of Robert and Place talks about the three parts of the soul, and
Right.
Plato's three parts of the soul with the chariot and so forth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he links the three lines to the three parts of the soul, and he had it in a way to where each of those three parts of the soul have a corresponding virtue, which is sort of like a solution to for instance, temperance is the solution to um, the soul of desire or something like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's not something I know too much about. I was just reading about it briefly not that long ago. But that's like the Neoplatonic kind of way of looking at them.
I do love me a bit of Plato, so I do. In fact, interestingly, I was recently looking up to see if I could get myself something on the complete works of Plato because he talks about a lot of really interesting stuff, particularly Plato's I always forget what the actual thing's called, but Plato's chariot. Um,
The Phaedrus, I think
yeah,
it's called.
Phaedrus or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And Plato's cave as well is one that I kind of I like to think about. I would liken the cave to judgment, and the soul or the chariot to the chariot, funnily enough. Um, but yeah, it's a good one.
Masha walked in. Hello, Masha.
Hey Masha,
Thanks for
how are you?
stopping by.
Masha's asking, I wonder how many of you actually read with majors only on occasion.
I know Masha does. I do. I've been doing it more, a lot more actually. Um, I found myself doing it the other day because it was the Tower of Eros, which I was talking to Mendy and Masha, and she was saying
Right,
how it's a bit of a vulgar deck. It's got a lot of it's an adult deck, put it that way. Obviously, the Tower of Arrows, it's a bit risque, and I
right,
decided
okay,
to see what it would look like if I just pulled the majors out. And
right.
it was like I decided it was PG-13. It wasn't rated R with just the majors. It's very fun to do, and visually it works really well too when you read them with majors only.
Yeah,
Malamir is just saying something about that. Let's see. I do not read with majors only, but sometimes I will pull from only majors for a significator in a spread. That's interesting.
that's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about playing cards a little bit too lately, and but I have
Minors
a
only.
yeah, but actually, I mean, you and I have done that even on this channel. We've practiced with playing card reading. We should probably do that again sometime.
Yeah,
But I'm taking a class with Kelly Fitzgerald on Ogham, and I thought, it would pair really well with playing cards. I thought because in a way, like I would have the Ogham as like kind of the main archetypal energy replacing the majors, and then I can pull some playing cards as like that kind of. I thought it would blend well, you know.
yeah,
Particularly this one playing card deck I got from Uzi was gifted to me by a friend. And they actually have Cavaliers too. It's the only playing card I have like that, a playing card deck. I'm
right,
surprised there aren't more of them, but like it's essentially the minor arcana. It has four core cards as opposed
right.
to three,
Oh,
which is kind of cool.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Malamir loves reading with playing cards. And so, do you want to talk about the other, um, the? Do you want to like divide the cards and talk about that, or
Divide
um,
them.
into two groups?
Of
The other,
10, the two
yeah,
tens.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Just
Sure.
kind of
Will
because this
will
is,
I switch over to Marseille for this?
yeah.
We
Let's
can
do
get a wee
that.
bit of Juno and Jupiter.
Yes, let's do that.
Wee bit of what they've got
Definitely.
to tell us.
Yeah, because
Um,
this is. It would only be fair since this is the way you tend to favor. So, but Chris has a Best in Song deck, which you'll see in a minute. It doesn't have a
yeah,
Pope
Chris
and
has got a
Popeth.
best in Son deck that isn't actually in order, so you just
Calm
have to
down,
bear with
Masha.
me.
We know this is your favorite. Masha's jumping for joy right now. She loves this deck.
Oh, that's the
Masha just leaped for joy when she saw this deck.
oh, I think I'm going to actually zoom in a wee bit because no, that's probably not right.
Oh, when I said Cavalier, Masha thought I was talking about her dog. Chappie is a Cavalier, King Charles.
16, 17, 19. Sorry, excuse me whilst I order
Oh
these.
no, it's perfect. We could also talk about the Juno and Jupiter, which I do not have much ethereal on these cards in terms of the Fool's Journey or any other sequence. I do like the Bacchus though. Makes a lot of sense for me.
Right. Oh gosh, these aren't going to fit in. If I do this, then we will. Yeah, let's see. We've got 15. So I was going to miss something. Let's
Malamir is
see.
thinking about buying Mildred Payne's Oracle. That actually does look like
Nice.
a cool Oracle. I don't have any of his Oracles. In fact, aside from what do I have? I have the Deviant Moon. Aside from that, I only have his historic decks, which are really, actually, I think a lot of people don't even know he has them, but they're really, he's building a nice collection of historic decks.
I appear to be missing an emperor.
No way.
Okay, it'll be here. I've just not pulled it out. Let's see if I can quickly find it.
You can always use one of the other cards too.
Oh no, we can't be doing that. There is there.
We know Masha. this is her. This is like Masha's one of Masha's favorites of all time. He's
10 just fits in.
oh Malamir.
Can
I've never read Tea Leaves, but I do have a tea leaf set, a teacup, and I did a few readings with it. It actually was pretty. But I was reading with a book. It was like looking up definitions, but it was pretty accurate actually.
shall I just stick these two chaps up here? How is that? Can you see that okay, Justin?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I can see
Okay,
it.
cool. So these are the two groups of 10. Um, Yeah, so I mean, especially with Justice at 8, this is that first line in particular. I suppose a wee bit the second line as well, but that first line is my numerology. That's how I take my numerology. Um, for my minors, everything in the tarot is based on this for me. Um, I know a lot of people think the tarot. Well, think a lot of people view the tarot as being based on sevens and the three groups. That's where we get three groups of seven, and seven's such an important number. But for me, like the whole of the deck is kind of or more or less the whole of the deck kind of revolves around this kind of idea. Um, so yeah,
Numerologically, it does make sense, you know.
yeah, yeah. Um, and out interest. So I've got um the one JJ here, which has a book that Stuart Kaplan wrote, and this obviously has Juno and Jupiter. And what I'm interested to know is, has he given them particular meanings? Sorry, this is something I should really have done myself rather than. But
I
I'm
never
just,
even
I'm
thought about looking at that book actually for that because I always wondered that myself.
yeah,
I know the Papes. I think some I've heard people link it to not the Papes, the Juno. They link her to like the peacock and pride and stuff.
right, okay. So he says, like divinatory meaning, this card represents wisdom, sageness, common sense, enlightenment, knowledge, education, penetration, foresight, intuition, understanding, intelligence, and comprehension. So that might apply to both Juno and the High Priestess.
Yes.
Where we might see more of a difference is, to me, Jupiter. Like Jupiter is essentially Zeus, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the thunderbolts,
Yes.
that's a very different um, person to the Hierophant. But here it says this symbolizes mercy, humility, kindness, goodness, forgiveness, leniency, indulgence, compassion, inspiration, alliance, a person to whom one has recourse, ritual, conformity, servitude, a religious or spiritual person. So to me, he's just taking the meanings for the high priestess and
Yeah.
um, the high priest from and
Yes.
that.
It seems like that. And I don't know how I would see Juno and Jupiter in this kind of sequence,
Yeah,
though. Anybody have
yeah,
any ideas? I'd love to hear from people in the chat if you see anything about these two groups, particularly with Juno and Jupiter. The So let's say we put the Spanish captain at 2 and the
uh,
Bacchus at 5, which is how the Belgium tarot is. You know, if you think of like the Vandenboer, this was a common thing people, towns did to appease people's religions. It was considered blasphemous to put the Papess and the Pope and so forth, and for
mm,
various other reasons they swapped them out. You know, it's not exactly clear to me, but in the Belgium deck you have the Bacchus, which is essentially, you know, it's the Roman Bacchus is the Greek Dionysus, is the god of wine, ecstasy, and party, and it's a guy sitting on a barrel, and I see him as almost in like a kind of early childhood developmental way, like your first experience kind of partying, or your first psychedelic experience, things like that. Whereas, because you have the early upbringings, you have your parents and your religious leaders and so forth, with the well, not so much with the Bacchus replaces the religious leader, but so instead,
yeah,
but normally in the traditional deck, the lovers is like the first act of independence. That's when
yeah,
you break away from that's when you do something finally on your own, that you connect with somebody you love. That's that's an act of independence. Usually, one of your first. But if you
yeah,
think of the Bacchus, he's kind of like an active independence in a way for me.
yeah,
He's like, partying it up with your friends, rebelling against your parents.
yeah, definitely.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just looking at the comments here.
Me too. I'm just having a look.
Yes, I agree, Deanne. Yep. So when you say, just back to quickly about this. So when you say this lines up numerologically, do you see a difference between line one and line two, or is it just a repeat of line one?
Um, well, interestingly, when I've been going through the minors and the Mary L, I'm sorry to keep coming back to that. It's not on purpose. It's just because it's the thing that I'm studying the most right now. And when we're doing the minors, like for example, this month it's the sixes. So I'll have the 6 and the 16. You know, the lovers and um the tower. Just kind of at the start, just to kind of start us off with an idea of what the number means. And I'm learning new things all the time about what I think, how I think they kind of are mixed together. Um, Before I might have, you know, thought, well, how the hell do the lovers and the tower, like, what do they? But for me, you know how earlier on I said like it's basically the search for harmony. The lovers is searching for something else that's out with yourself that completes the harmony. So it's like the yin looking for the yang, or like the positive magnet looking for the negative. Whatever it is, you're looking for something out with that completes you, and you know, it creates that harmony. Or maybe it's more than one thing, but whatever it is, it's a coming together. The idea of like, the caduceus and the solving coagula, the coming together and breaking apart. You've got the coming together, but then also the tower is a release of negative energy. You're getting rid of something with the tower, something that's no longer serving, in order to reestablish that harmony. Um, so, yeah, I'm not sure if I particularly think, this line is that. I mean, I suppose you could think about it as like this is like the overworld and this is like the underworld. I've seen that said before. Don't know how much I really kind of resonate so much with that. Um, that this is the kind of the initial lessons, and these are like the more difficult lessons. Like Pondu, the death and all that kind of like the devil and the tower. This is where we meet some of the absolute darkest shit that the tarot has to throw at us. I'll say that. So this is a very kind of a dark and deeper layer. Um, but I think it's quite difficult to say with certainty. Line one is this and line two is that. Um, yeah. You get any thoughts about that?
I was just thinking about it. I think like what you were saying about duality works really nicely. I was just trying to kind of going through them in my head and how they would factor out. It's a bit of a challenge because I don't really think of, like I tend to look at the three groups of seven more, but this really seems to play better like with reading, especially like pip cards and stuff, because obviously 11 is just, after 10 years you start to repeat, you go back to 1 through
Mm,
10, you know.
yeah,
And some people read like pips like this. Some people link them to the majors.
yeah.
We had a question here, and I was trying to think. I'm trying to find it here. Morning Star, what can a reading with tarot answer correctly? What can a
Oh,
reading with tarot answer correctly?
I
Usually
think
things
that's
you
got
already
to
know the
depend on
answer
the
to.
reader.
Yes, exactly. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry, you answer it.
So dependent on the reader. Like, it- it's difficult to answer that question without coming across like you're telling people how to use the tarot. Do you know what I mean?
True.
Like different people use the tarot in different ways. I might use it for inner reflection, in which case the answers that it'll answer correctly for me are questions like, how can I handle this situation better? It's like kind of a reflective questions about myself. Justin might, use it for fortune telling. He might use it to kind of a look into the future and see, right, what am I coming up against today? What's happening to me? I think, if I'm honest, I think all of us, to a certain degree, it's not like a one or the other. We're all on a sliding scale. It's a spectrum, and we all sit somewhere on it. You know, um, I'm not sure if I truly believe that anyone never uses the tarot for fortune telling. Do you know what I mean? Like, cause I don't know. Anyway, so the questions that it answers correctly are, it depends on how you use it. Um, and within that, you know, it'll depend on how you use it.
True.
I'm not making sense.
No,
I'm stumbling over my words, but
you're making perfect sense, and you're not stumbling over your words. Um, yeah, I think generally for me, it draws out what you already know. I feel like a lot of times when it comes to serious stuff, I might do a play reading about a baseball game and do a predictive reading or something like that. But when it comes down to like issues with like my relationship, and this is just me personally, like Chris was saying, when everybody uses it differently, but I think generally it helps. It's a way of thinking for me. Um, you know, or like conceptual blending, like Vinny Patici says. It's like you're applying the stimuli of the cards to the answer, and it's allowing you to see problems and potential issues you might encounter, and it's basically thinking. It's helping you organize your thoughts about something, because at people tend to get overwhelmed when they're stressing about something, or you have like a decision to make, and I think the cards help you focus. And do you agree with that, Chris?
100%, yeah, yeah. Especially the idea of conceptual blending, and I think I feel as though this goes into like the how does tarot work question ultimately,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yes.
And I think at its very core, if you look at it from a scientific point of view, if you even want to call it that, Um, conceptual blending is how it works. It's an unrelated stimulus that you're applying to a question in order to get new solutions that you hadn't thought of before. I think
Exactly.
everyone can agree that it works that way on a mundane base level. And then how much more you want to bring into that just depends on you as a person, your beliefs, and how you personally think it works.
Yeah.
So if you want to believe that there's some sort of cosmic order and the tarot helps you tap into that, great. If you want to believe that there's magic gnomes that are about that come and move that personally select what cards are coming out, great. I, you know, there's different ways that people will kind of interpret these cards as working. And I suppose going back to the original question, what kind of questions can it answer? It will depend a lot on what your philosophy is on that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. Richard was asking a question about the numbers. Let's see, with numbers, do you not add the doubles to get the single? Example six. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think you can do it that way as well. Personally, I prefer the two lines of 10 in terms of my numerology. And that's just the way I generally tend to look at them and tend to think about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, sure, there will be lots of people that bring that into it. I suppose for me, it's because you've got an ace through to a 10, so you've got 10 minor cards. I suppose 14 if you're thinking about the courts, but I don't think about them in line with numerology. They're a wee bit different for me. Um, and I suppose that's why I like my two rows of 10.
Yeah. Let's see here. If Tarot answers a question, I'm just going to read some of the comments here. Tarot answers a question correctly during a reading, it's because the question has been posed correctly, as in sincerely. I mean, that could be true. I mean, again, like it depends on who's reading, how you read. Some people don't use questions. I tend to use, I like questions now, you know. Um, But there are people that don't. They just pull three cards. Once in a while, I'll do that, just to play around. But if there's a serious issue going on, because generally, if you're going to the tarot, you have a question anyway. There's something on your mind, um, and usually, if you don't have a question, you can get a question based on what your mind is. It focuses the reading. It gives the cards context, because three random cards can mean literally anything, and when you filter through a question, it's just another way to filter the question. You know.
Yeah. I feel as though things are getting a wee bit. So right, Morningstar said here, I've seen better accuracy from Pendula or a Ouija board versus tarot, which is fair enough. To you, tarot is, like most disclaimers say, for entertainment only, and JH says a really good response to that. JH says, well then to you, Morningstar, then it is for entertainment purposes, and that's cool. I agree with that. Morningstar's then saying, can you honestly attest that, you know, not all questions that you put to the tarot are going to be future casting? So, for example, I might say to the tarot, I've got a job interview. How can I best approach that? Or I had a job interview yesterday. How, I was asked the question, tell me something interesting about yourself, or I was asked this particular question. How, how could I have answered that? Do you know what I mean? That isn't future casting. That's got nothing to do with future casting. That's purely reflective. So your question kind of sets the premise that we're all kind of trying to predict future events. That's a misconception about the
It
tarot. I,
is.
I really don't think that is the case. There's lots of people that use it for different things.
Exactly.
And future predicting future events is definitely one of them. But
That's one
it's
of the
not the only
reasons
one.
people are hesitant to tell people they're into tarot reading, because they're like, oh, they're going to think I'm a fortune teller. They're going to think
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
don't believe everything you see on TV and you see in the movies. It's fun. And there are people that use it like that. But a lot of us, we are, we're into like philosophical type things. We're into contemplative and um, that kind of thing. It's more of, it is spiritual in some sense, but when it comes to doing readings, a lot of us do it very practically. You know what I mean? It's not something like, now I will do personally, I will do as a fun, as entertainment, like you said, I will do like, who's going to win the baseball game or something, just to play around. And believe it or not, I mean, like sometimes it's eerie, the predictions I make and things like that. I've done it in the past, but then sometimes I'm dead wrong. But that's not what tarot is for me. That's just having fun with the cards.
yeah.
I play solitaire with them too sometimes, but um, when you are asking a question, let's say, you know, um, I got a job interview tomorrow. How's the best way I can prepare for it? And then you draw three cards. You know, you get the high priestess. These are all just, they're not mixed up, but so we got the papess. Obviously, study, know your shit. You know what I mean? Um, Learn the material, uh, the star. It could be something about make sure you know how to get to your job interview so you're not late. Because I think of the star as following the star as like direction. This is just random. It's just a way to think things through. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And it's not something that you're going to live your life by or whatever. And I mean, everybody's different, so
And thank goodness for that.
yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. Jonathan was saying, oh, well, let's Masha's first. I personally don't read without a question. We know Masha. Tarot has predicted things for me, Morningstar. Jonathan says the questions is why I usually use spreads for my tarot readings and why I love creating spreads. Many ways to use and predict. Okay. Predicting future events is normally the card flipper, not the cards, meaning that the an accurate reading would be possible without cards. You're the psychic, not the tool kind of thing. I guess. I don't know. Again, we don't all use it that way. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, back to our conversation, and then we can probably wrap up. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Any other sequences or things you want to
Eh,
bring up?
I'm trying to think if there's anything that I know you had kind of a spoke about another sequence. It was the four groups of five, but is that maybe
Oh,
a topic for another time or
well, we can. I guess we could just look at it briefly. So you
sure?
separate the world and the fool, just like you have.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, and then you have the first five, which are the earthly rulers. Then this was
yeah,
just something playing around. I don't know how it works, but um, so yeah, you have the rulers, the earthly rulers. Then you have like kind of falling in love, getting your wheels. I like to think of the chariot as getting your driver's license, in a, in a way. That's how I think of it. It's like you fall in love, you get a girlfriend or a partner, and then you get your first car, and you go through that. And the next one was let's see,
oh,
strength, the
that's why.
hangman, death.
The world had infiltrated my grid, but we've got rid of her now.
Yeah, that's a trickier one. The third line is a little trickier. Trying to think.
Right.
The last line makes a lot of sense though, because that's the hierarchy of lights right there, and then the angel of judgment.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
you're starting off the sequence with the earthly rulers, and you're ending with the heavenly rulers. They
yeah,
rule the sky, the lightning, the stars, sun, and moon, and judgment.
yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
It is. It's pretty cool.
I don't see anything in particular. I'm looking down, and I don't see anything. How about you, Chris? You like this or?
I do. I do. It's definitely something I'd like to spend a wee bit more time looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but yeah,
Well, this was a lot of fun, Chris. I appreciate you doing this, and I know you have work tomorrow, and we've been going now for an hour and a half. Time flew by. Always love talking about this stuff with you. I hope we can do it again sometime. Just talking about the cards. Um, if you have not been to Chris's channel, Elemental Cartomancy, I believe I linked it below. I should have. If I didn't, it will be. Down there. And if somebody can put it in the chat, that'd be great too. If
thank you
anybody
very
here is a
much.
mod, and put it in the chat. Chris does a lot. Chris is one of the more talented readers that I know. Really gifted reader. You know, he's a very reader centric. We all have our interests. With tarot, and for me, tarot is sort of a gateway to a lot of other things. I learn about a lot of other stuff. Um, but Chris is very reader centric. He's very passionate about card reading, and that's very obvious with his channel. And if you're thinking about learning the Marielle, stop by to his series, and I'm sure he's going to do other things like that down the road with other decks and things. And just pay him a visit. It's a really great channel. And thanks for stopping by, everyone. I appreciate you all. It was good seeing you. Thank you, Chris, for doing this again. And until next time, everybody. You have any wait? Do you have any announcements or anything you want to?
I
Anything
don't
coming
think
up?
so. I don't really have anything
Okay,
particularly unusual coming up, but I just want to say thank you very much both for your kind words and for having me, Justin. I've
it's my
really
pleasure,
enjoyed
man.
it, and I'd love to do this again soon.
Yes, let's do it again.
We
Absolutely.
keep saying we're going to get together and read playing cards, so we need to make that a thing. So we do.
Yes, maybe we can invite Masha because she likes reading playing cards too, so the three of us can read playing cards or something like
Yeah,
that.
that'd be cool.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again. Love and peace.
See you later, everyone. Bye bye.